The silent savior. The city moved around him, everyone busy, everyone in a hurry, never looking twice at the man sitting quietly near the edge of the street. To them, he was nobody, just another guy in layers of old clothes and a threadbare beanie worn down by the world. But Jonas Madsen didn't mind. In fact, he relied on it. He had lost his voice years ago, in a childhood he barely remembered, and he'd never gotten it back. For most people, that would be a curse, but for Jonas, it was his greatest strength. His silence let him blend in, go unnoticed. And while people ignored him, he noticed everything like a watcher hiding in plain sight. Jonas didn't plan on becoming a hero. He didn't even think of himself that way. But the night he saw the stranger, everything changed. It was close to midnight, and the city had quieted down. Jonas was moving through the back streets, his eyes catching every detail, shadows against the walls, a flickering light, the sound of distant footsteps. Then he saw him, a man in a dark coat, standing outside a small office building, looking around like he was waiting for someone or hiding from someone. Jonas felt a prickle of curiosity. He had learned to read people's body language like a second language, and this man was tense, fidgety, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting to be caught. Normally, Jonas would have moved on, letting the city's mysteries stay just that. But something made him linger, watching as the man pulled out his phone, glanced at it, and slipped inside the building. A quiet alarm went off in Jonas's mind. He didn't know why, but he felt a chill at the base of his spine. Without thinking, he followed the man. Inside, Jonas stayed to the shadows, his worn sneakers making almost no noise on the tiled floor. The man had already disappeared down a hallway, but Jonas didn't need to see him to follow. He knew these spaces, knew how to listen. A door creaked open up ahead, followed by hushed voices. Jonas pressed himself against the wall, listening. The voices were too soft to make out words, but the tone was clear, urgent, hushed, a hint of threat in every sentence. Jonas leaned closer, focusing on every sound. Bits of conversation drifted out. To many people, accidents and a chilling, almost whispered phrase, collateral damage. He barely moved, absorbing every word he could catch, piecing together fragments. The man in the coat was discussing something dark, something that involved hurting people. And he wasn't alone. As Jonas strained to hear, the door opened wider, and he got his first clear glimpse of the people inside, the man in the coat, a stern-looking woman in a blazer, and a third man, younger, who looked nervous, like he was regretting being there.
They were discussing plans to disrupt something big in the city. Jonas could make out references to subway routes, electrical grids, and strategic locations. It was too much to ignore. He didn't understand every detail, but he knew enough. This was dangerous, and people would get hurt. For the first time in years, Jonas felt a wave of anger and fear. He wanted to shout, to warn someone, but he had no voice to raise. Instead, he moved quickly, deciding to shadow the people involved, observing every move they made over the next few days. They had no idea he was there, watching them as they mapped out their plans. Jonas began to piece together their scheme. The group was planning to create a series of accidents to sabotage parts of the city's infrastructure, things that would create chaos and pull attention away from their real target. He wasn't entirely sure what that target was, but he knew enough to act. Using a public library computer, Jonas typed up an anonymous warning message and sent it to a local journalist. He kept it short, sticking to what he had heard, and sent it under a fake name. He didn't know if anyone would believe him, but he hoped someone would investigate. The next few days passed in tense silence. Jonas kept his distance, hoping his message had been received. Then, he saw a news report that the authorities were investigating a possible threat to the city. It was vague, just enough to make people cautious. But it was something. As the plans unfolded, Jonas stayed one step ahead of the group, quietly relaying information wherever he could. He had become a ghost, an invisible figure slipping through the city's shadows, keeping people safe without them ever knowing. And even though he couldn't speak, Jonas knew he had found his voice. Subscribe my YouTube channel for more interesting stories.